What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode review for Vinland Saga Season 2. This is episode 12, and with me, as always, I have Blue Spade.
Yeah, it definitely did have the feel of a season finale based on the way this episode ended and what it might eventually. I guess it'll eventually turn into once after what happened in this episode.
Yeah, I think it's definitely setting up for a confrontation between Thorfinn and Canute with what Canute's plan seemed to be.
Yeah, I mean, Canute's plan was obvious, to obviously requisition Kettle's farm, but of course to do that, he concocts a plan to provoke Olmar into starting a fight with his, I guess, with his royal guards.
Yeah, we got the implication of this in the last episode with Canute having that meeting with his advisors about what he should do with Omar, and it seemed like he was planning to, of course, he was planning to use him in some way. He knew that he wouldn't actually be useful to him as like a warrior or anything like that, so he was trying to think about how he could potentially use Omar as like a means to an end, essentially. Which we already knew that Canute was trying to was planning to requisition Kettle's farm. So he found out, just because this would be I guess a perfect opportunity to basically use Olmar's desires to become like a warrior to his own advantage.
Yeah. So what happens is he assigns his captain of his guard, Wolf, to I guess coerce like half a dozen of his underlings to I guess in a way provoke Olmar into starting that fight. Pretty much relaying the message to him that he's not accepted into the royal guard. But of course, just instead of just straight up telling him the message, they just straight up rub salt in the wound in a big way, which pretty much provokes Olmar to the point where he literally pulls out his sword in front of them and challenges one of them to a duel. Of course, the result of that fight doesn't really go well for Olmar, and he really just gets his butt kicked really badly.
We should also mention the character that shows up really at the beginning of the episode that is that like flicks these coins at people, and he does he ends up having sort of basically making it so that Omar does end up like winning this fight against one of I guess Canute's guardsmen because of he ends up flicking a coin right into his eye.
Yeah, and this, of course, well, actually, before this, I think it was Thorgil encourages his brother to stand up and fight, and this leads to Olmar charging at the guy, and then just, of course, stabbing his sword through his throat. But that was, of course, that was after the guy had his had a coin lodged into his right eye.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of anime-only watchers are probably going to be surprised at the amount of development that Omar got in this episode, and most people probably weren't expecting him to get this, actually get this kind of development, because he's mostly just been like a new side character they introduced that, most people probably like in most other anime, you wouldn't really expect like like a character like that to really get quite a bit of screen time and the amount of development that they end up getting. But it's kind of interesting to watch, what ends up happening with Omar. He has these desires to become a warrior, and but he really is kind of finding out the hard way that that's not really what he's, I guess, like what he's meant for, as compared to his brother Thorgil.
See it in his face after he killed the guy. I mean, he doesn't feel any, he doesn't feel any sort of vindication for what he did. He just felt like, felt more traumatized, if anything.
Yeah, and I mean, you compare that to how, when you watch Thorgil kill people, Thorgil kills people without any sort of remorse or, he doesn't really think twice about it. He pulls out his sword and he just starts hacking people up. Whereas, uh, Omar, who's never, of course, never really killed anybody, he just is completely shocked the first time he kills someone, and he's really having trouble processing what he's just done.
Yeah, and of course, after what happened, I guess the remaining guardsmen uh, end up pulling out their swords, but of course, Thorgil decides to step in and just basically just slaughters every single one of them in the most.
Yeah.
It was just blatant overkill, just hacking a guy straight down in half, cutting off their limbs, chopping off their heads. That just, yeah, you can definitely see the contrast between, Thorgil and his brother, and of
Yeah.
course, Kettle arrives and he is just not happy with the whole situation. Obviously, like on how this whole thing unfolded. Basically, just warning Thorgil that it's illegal to to start duels out in the open, and this of course gets even worse when the rest of the king's guardsmen come in to arrest both. Well, actually, no, arrest all three of them, and of course, Thorgil, of course, basically just kills the remaining guardsmen after this, but not before discovering that the guy that Olmar killed had a coin lodged into his eye.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and he actually initially, of course, found it suspicious when Omar managed to kill this person, and he knew something was up, and this just confirmed that something happened that allowed Omar to win, and that's why he lets one of the guards live just so he can question him as to why they basically let Omar win. Of course, the guard initially doesn't really want to give him a straight answer, so he stabs him in the eye, and that basically forces him to admit that the whole thing was set up so that they could arrest Kettle. And this is, of course, all part of Canut's plan to requisition Kettle's farm. This is the first Kettle, hears of this, of course, and he's shocked, and he's asking why they would want to do this. So yeah, I mean, Thorgil, at least what he did kind of, in a way, kind of saved them in a way, if you think about it, because otherwise they would be left in the dark, and their farm probably would have been it still could be, just taken over by Canut's forces.
Yeah, I mean, regardless if they found out what Canute was up to, Canute was still gonna, move
Yeah.
forward with his plan regardless.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, but now I would say that they could at least, kind of maybe prepare for his invasion before, potentially before he gets there. But as opposed to being ill prepared and just being completely slaughtered and taken by surprise, I guess.
Yeah, and of course, Kettle, Thorgil, and Olmar end up escaping by stowing away until Leif Erikson's boat. Of course, the deal is if Leif ends up helping them, then they'll help him get Thorfinn back from slavery.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course we also get a few more scenes with Canute where, they basically inform Canute that that Kettle and his family had escaped. Canute pretty much says that it doesn't really affect the plan, Canute's plan. He's still moving forward with it. And that Floki's reinforcements are coming from the Jomsviking are coming from Jomsborg, I guess, to help with the invasion of Kettle's farm. And we also get another scene with him talking to his father's disembodied head, where basically his father's just basically telling him, it's sort of a repeat of what we've seen with the other scenes, where he's basically telling Canute that you've become so much like me. I mean, and Canute, I guess he still kind of rejects that notion, but it really is, he really kind of has become like Swen in a lot of ways.
I mean, just the amount of stuff that Canute has has done over the course of this season. Like, I mean, he's conquered countries. He's poisoned his rivals. He's killed his brother. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and now he's going out. This method of
I mean,
making like
if you think about it, Canute has done far worse things than than Thorfinn has done.
yeah,
Uh,
potentially yes.
yeah.
I mean, you could see like the major contrast between the two characters. I mean, despite all the horrible things that Thorfinn has done, he's managed to redeem himself by the second season. Of course, contrast that with Canute, which he was just basically like almost you would almost think he would be more of a pacifistic character in the first season, but after the death of his father, he just completely turned a 180 and became almost the exact same thing that Thorfinn was in the first season.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically like we mentioned before, it's kind of like the two characters in a way, basically switch places. Um which it really feels that way.
Yeah,
Um and we also get, one of the last scenes is we get just Einar and Thorfinn just kind of looking out into the sunset, and it's sort of like, I guess, setting up this potential conflict to come where we see the sun setting on the horizon, and it's kind of how things end, and it really does feel like it's. I know you mentioned before we started the review, it felt like the end of the season, but it's technically it's the end of the first core, I suppose, and it really does feel that way. Like, it's setting up for this invasion, or Canute's invasion of Kell's farm. And I mean, we do get a preview for the next episode, but it really doesn't give away too much, so we don't really know too much of what to expect with the next episode. I don't really expect there to be any kind of like a break in between two cores, like there wasn't really a break with the first season, so it probably is going to be the same with this one, I would assume.
yeah. I think it's most likely that it'll move on to the spring season.
Yeah.
Considering that honestly, there's really not much into the spring season. I mean, much of the meat is coming this July during the summer season.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense if it just continued on without taking a break.
Yeah,
Because I feel like if they didn't do that, yeah, they it wouldn't be a good idea, because then I mean, considering when they would come back, they'd have so many other shows to contend with.
yeah. I mean, considering shows like Bleach, Jujutsu Kaisen, what was it, Rurouni Kenshin as well. I mean,
Yeah.
you're competing with like a whole slew of different animes coming out this summer. So yeah, it's definitely a good idea if they continued their season until spring. Um, hoping that there's no major delays for the show compared to all the other stuff that we had to endure with all the other delays as well.
Well, so far we haven't had any kind of delays with it, so I wouldn't anticipate that we're going to have any moving forward. And I feel like the reason we had delays with stuff like Automata was because, like we mentioned, they supposedly have been outsourcing part of I guess, some of their production to China, which, I mean, I suppose it could explain why they're saying it's COVID, which I guess it's possible, or it could just be general production issues. But as far as I know, there's not anything like that going on with Vinland Saga, so I wouldn't really anticipate delays. So yeah, but hopefully we don't get any.
Yeah,
We haven't gotten any so far.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, hopefully, it'll consistently release the remaining episodes before the summer season arrives.
yeah. Yeah, but I don't really have too much else to say about the episode. I thought it was a pretty good episode. It was kind of definitely more of a setup episode, and just kind of showing what Canute's plans are. Like, of course, we kind of already knew what he was planning to do. But now this episode is mostly sort of focused on Omar, I guess, sort of coming to a realization that this probably isn't what he wants in his life, is to be like a warrior like Thorgil, and he's, I guess, sort of coming to a realization he's really nothing like his brother. But also just kind of, like I said, setting up this potential conflict to come, probably, between Canute and Thorfinn.
Yeah,
Because it seems like they're going to clash because of what his plans are.
yeah. I mean, pretty sure that the finale for the second core will definitely be Canute's invasion, depending on how much longer the buildup is going to be for the next core.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. I don't know if you have anything else to say about the episode and this episode in particular, though.
I know it was a good setup episode. Definitely did feel like it was a finale episode. But I'm pretty sure we're going to continue on up until the spring season.
Yeah. Yeah. But that all being said, guys, until next time, we will see you all later.